So this girl right here, her name is MJ Gray. She's a mega influencer on TikTok. Before I get into it, I just want to say that we shouldn't be spreading hatred towards her. I think she gets the picture. She's had enough of that. People are ripping her a new one online. This is what I want to get into is feminism, just the hypocrisy of TikTok influencers, because they're always giving out priceless advice on TikTok, and we can apply that to ourselves. Like, we all give out advice to people that we don't take ourselves. You know, nobody's perfect, everybody's a human being. So I just wanted to start with that. But this girl's had a crazy week. I went on her page and I looked at her content. She talks really badly about marriage, having kids. She believes that women should be extremely independent and not rely on a man for anything. At least that's what I gathered from watching a few videos of hers. And she's not the only one that says things like that on TikTok. We have this entire wave of feminism that's been emerging, I want to say, especially within the last 10 years. And it's not the same type of feminism we're used to throughout history. This is more so women in America or in the West I've seen just completely like trash men. Now, women have become more independent in modern time. It's kind of true. They don't really need to rely on a man for anything in this day and age. Again, particularly in the West. You know, there's a lot of girl bosses. Women can vote, have a choice. For me, I believe in personal freedom. So if you want to delegate your own life and choose which direction you want to go into and reach a higher education and all that, and you happen to be a woman, that's great. I want that for myself too, you know? So there's a lot about it on the surface that I have nothing against. It's just what I've noticed on TikTok, and I noticed that this creator kind of does this or did this a lot. And we're gonna get into the hypocrisy here, but she has a lot of videos where she's bashing the traditional norms of what's expected, I guess, out of women from society, and she goes all in. Now look, we can argue, it's freedom of speech. Everybody has a right to say what they want to say. Everyone has a right to speak their mind, even if we disagree with it. Even if one disagrees with a message, it's our right to speak our mind. And we do have ultimate freedom in this country, for the most part, I think. Well, on the surface-ish. I can get into that in another video, but that's another conversation for another time. I don't want to get into my conspiracies right now. It's not the time for this. But anyway, the thing with her is she kind of made it her entire personality for a long time. And she's, I think, cashed in on it too. Because again, she has like, what, 500,000 followers on TikTok? I'm not quite sure what the exact number is, but she's huge on TikTok. So, you know, when you reach that point, you're going to be making money. You know, you are a name. You're going to get brand deals. You're going to travel. She travels. She has a luxurious, what appears to be a luxurious life on the internet. Fast forward, she broke the internet this week. She announced that she got engaged, and everyone was going in on her because, again, this is the woman that's been bashing marriage, children, engagements, all this stuff. And now she finds herself in a position where she got engaged. Another issue that arose from her followers is that they noticed that she's been accepting these luxurious gifts from, I guess, said fiance or wherever they're coming from, but she's living this lavish life. Again, it appears to be so. We don't know the full story, you know? There's the internet and then there's real life. Not everybody's going to air out all their shit on the internet. So always keep that in mind. Like, this can apply to everybody. Even the government claims to be one way and then reality shows differently. You know what I mean? Like, it just is what it is. But it appears to be that she's living lavishly. She is engaged. She's in love. She addressed this. And it appeared to be that she held herself accountable. I'm not sure. This is where I'm getting to with all this, is the copy-paste culture online. And I think Gen Z has more of a difficult time dealing with this as opposed to my generation or the older generations. They seem to have a personality disorder, I swear. By that, I mean they don't have one. So they go online and they look for these mentors, these people that they'll probably never meet, and they look to them. And men do this too, by the way. We have the manosphere. These kids go online and they look to seek mentorship, again, from people they'll probably never meet in their lives, you know? And these people just give out advice, and others kind of model themselves after these creators online, these influencers. So where I was getting to is everyone in real life and especially on the internet, is a hypocrite. And I love that this happened, this moment happened, because it just shows that even someone who claimed to be this ultra feminist, bashing marriages, bashing the traditional norms, even she can change her mind and be a hypocrite in her own world. That's a human thing. So I say that because there's a lot of people just attacking her, and it's interesting because for me, I'm looking at it as, why are we surprised? People change their minds? Like, what's going on? Now, this is just referring to this girl and this ideology that she's been promoting, but a while back, I made a video about my take on modern day feminism. And, I grew up pretty much on the left. Nowadays, I don't believe in any isms. I don't do the isms or the ists unless if it has to do with like hermeticism, but that's another story for another time. I've talked about that before. I don't care for the rest of this stuff, really. None of it speaks to me anymore. Ultimately, I just believe in equality for all. Okay? Let's leave it at that. I believe in equality for all and justice for all. That's what it comes down to in a nutshell for me. And I don't like to throw a label on it. That's what I believe in. And my content that I've put out over the past 2 years speak for itself. That's just what I stand for. Whether you're a nuanced thinker or not, I don't know if you'll get the message. But anyways, what I wanted to get to about feminism in particular, modern day feminism, is that my mind on feminism as far as the West is concerned, it completely shifted once I visited Algeria. Okay, this was back when I was 19 years old. And at that point, I hadn't been back in Algeria since when I was born. It had been well over a decade. And at first, I wasn't excited to go because, again, I grew up kind of like a punk rocker, and my parents let me do whatever. I lived this life of complete freedom, and I really identified as a feminist. And I modeled that based off of everything I've been hearing. I grew up on the internet too, so that was my vibe, that was my thing, that was my identity. And I wasn't looking forward to going back to Algeria to visit because, again, this was going to take place throughout the entire summer. And my cousin was getting married. It was a big deal. And my parents were like, no, you're going. And I was afraid because I was like, oh my God, am I going to be able to party? Am I gonna, all these superficial things, right? Can I go party? Can I have a drink? Can I do things that I would normally do here? Because over there, it's like a Muslim country and blah, 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 whatever. Eventually, I landed and I was surprised. I thought everybody was going to be in a hijab, no shade to hijabis or anything like that. But I mean, look at me, so it would be a shock for me because I grew up in LA. I'm not used to that. But it wasn't like that at all. Actually, people were very friendly. I was surprised to see so many women who owned businesses. I'm talking bakeries, they were in the pharmacies, they were doctors. I actually visited my great aunt, who was an established heart doctor. She specializes in the heart. She's a medical doctor. And she had this pretty fancy life. And she was a career woman and that's my great aunt, okay? She lived a long time. And I just seeing all these females that were independent, and I noticed that they have their version of feminism, but it's nothing like Western feminism, like in the modern day. Their version of feminism is actually tied into nationalism, which I thought was interesting. Because feminists over here hate this country, but feminists over there actually take pride in their flag. And it varies. Some of them are into traditional roles. They enjoy being wives, they enjoy being mothers, and some enjoy being single. It's actually not a big deal. And it appears to be that all the women are on each other's side there. And the end goal is they want to be successful in whatever success looks like to them. And so for me, that was kind of a culture shock that I wasn't expecting, to be honest. And then as I got older, it started to make more sense because my mom was always kind of like the head of the household. She always had a job. She was always hardworking. And my dad was very laid back about it. They're still married till this day. And my dad he's a hard worker too. He provided for our family for sure. In fact, when we first got to this country, we heavily relied on him. He was definitely, till this day in my eyes, still very much a man and what a man would do, but more so because he respected my mom and honored her voice and her opinions. And they were a great team, they were very compatible that way. Anyways, just to tie back to how that shifted my perspective on modern day feminism, By the time I got back in the West, I noticed, like, you can't force people to take pride in their flag necessarily, but everything else, like the way these feminists bash other women is like ridiculous, because I didn't see that in another place where I thought would be way more strict, where I thought all women didn't have a say, but a lot has changed. And since then, a lot more has changed. There's been a lot of development and investment going into Algeria since. Because again, I was 19 at that time. Now I'm going to be 34 in a few days. It's been a while. My cousins have degrees. They work. They're smart. They speak English amongst other languages. Like, they're very intelligent and they're very feminist. I don't know how to explain it, but not in the way we would talk about feminism here. So my idea changed, and especially as I got older, I know a lot of women who have kids, who are divorced, who are married, who don't have kids, who have businesses, who are stay-at-home moms, all walks of life of women that I've been friends with throughout my life. And they're all, to a degree, independent. I like them all, and I like them all for different reasons too. My cousin just had a baby, and she's like a career woman. You know, she's a single mom. She's doing better than I am, if I'm gonna be honest. So if anything came out of this MJ disaster, is that the internet is fake. It really is. The internet is so fake. You really have to mingle with people in the real world to get a grasp of reality. And it's just interesting how so many people believed in this girl and modeled their entire outlook on feminism off of what she was saying. And I'm just pointing her out because she's huge, and this is referring to her, but she's not the only one. She's not the only one. There's so many women out there that do this. This is a cultural thing now. Within its own self, it's a cultural revolution. What resulted in this? Passport bros. That's another topic for another time. Men aren't really in demand anymore for a lot of these younger women. And I noticed it kind of does have to do with the younger generation, though the trend started with a few independent women generations before. But it's resulted in this whole, like, women who just have this ideology wrapped around contemporary feminism of like, okay, well, men are useless and fuck marriage and fuck having children. And another result of that is the birth rate significantly dropping. So the whole point of this is, and it may be taken out of context too, like, I'm not telling young women, these Zoomer girls, to go out, get married, find their identity in their partner, have kids at a really young age, like before your frontal lobe develops. Like, that's not what I'm saying at all. And I've never actually put that message out there because I know better. I've met so many different types of women in different scenarios and places in their lives that it all looks different. You know, some have kids, some don't. Some are married, some aren't. Some have businesses and have kids, and it's not black and white. This world is nuanced. And again, this also ties back to another important point I wanted to make, is it's okay to change your mind. I've said this so many times, and I really want this to be a trend online of like us changing our minds. It is okay. You can apply this to your political preferences. It's okay to change your mind on who you vote for as president, pull that opinion back later, even when it's too late. That's okay. That's another trend I'm seeing. People going like, well, you voted for this, so you wanted this. And I just think that way of thinking is so low IQ. I feel like if you don't believe in evolution and humans changing, and also just thinking in nuanced ways, not everything is black and white. If you're not a nuanced thinker, like, you really don't want to be like this. You really don't. And I think it's harmful for young women to take in so much of just one person or one ideology and kind of model their worldview around that. I highly recommend, if you can, to travel, to expose yourself to other cultures, or just to read, to get a better understanding of how the rest of the world operates, people your age in other countries, how they operate, how they look at the world. Like, it's not all that serious. It really isn't. That's what makes this world so beautiful in a lot of ways, is just how different everybody is. Can you imagine we all thought alike and liked the same song and ate the same food? How boring that would be. I personally would be unhappy living my life like that. I like differences. Where was I going with this? Oh, yeah. I guess this is where my rant took me to. It's okay to change your mind, you guys, and don't go on TikTok seeking advice. It's okay to get some inspiration, maybe hear somebody out, but don't forget to go out into the real world and meet real people if you can, and just communicate in the flesh. And try to make a friend that has nothing in common with you, and maybe you can find a middle ground with them somewhere. That's all I'm saying. I was given that advice a really long time ago, and I'm glad that I took it when I did.